Anne would have loved the Game Show Network. Hey everybody, welcome to Mainely Movies. As part of my coverage of the 2023 Toronto International Film Festival, today I'm going to be talking about the 2023 comedy Quiz Lady, which will be released on Hulu on November 3rd. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for a variety of movie-related content like reviews, rank lists, and trailer reactions. All my reviews include a breakdown of the pros and cons, my rating, and some tailored film recommendations, so be sure to watch through to the end of this video for all of that extra content. Quiz Lady stars Awkwafina, Sandra Oh, and Will Ferrell, and was directed by Jessica Yu. It tells the story of sisters, Anne and Jenny, who embark on a cross-country road trip to appear on a game show in order to save a kidnapped dog. When it comes to film, horror and comedy are the two genres that are looked down on the most, or viewed as lesser styles. General audiences, critics, and even awards voters are much more likely to say that a drama is the better film when compared to a horror movie or a traditional comedy. In part, I think this is because these two genres are more likely to be classified as entertainment rather than something of substance. But I also think comedy and horror are more subjective than other genres. What scares one person might do nothing for the next person. What makes one person laugh might make another person cringe. But even though comedy isn't a particularly highly regarded genre, it is a popular one. A good chunk of films that come out each year are infused with humor, and we end up with a lot of something comedies. You know, romantic comedies, horror comedies, dramedies. Now, I like those combo comedy films as much as the next person, but pure single genre comedies aren't quite as common, especially at prestige film festivals like TIFF. So there was a type of refreshing simplicity to seeing a comedy like Quiz Lady at a festival. Now, when I say simplicity, I'm referring to the genre. The tone, the style of the film, not the story. It's not that the plot here is difficult to understand or follow, really, but it is pretty convoluted and silly in its premise. In that sense, this movie feels like an early to mid-2000s comedy, where there was a very silly story that gets kicked off by a set of impossible circumstances, and then proceeds through a series of equally implausible events towards its inevitable feel-good conclusion. That might be interpreted as a bad thing, but as long as you go into it knowing it's a silly film with some intentionally impossible scenarios, it's pretty fun. I do think there were a few too many plot threads going on here, though. There's one thread in particular that involves gangster loan sharks, and while it serves as the catalyzing event of the story, and was often funny, it could have been reduced, because it does pull focus away from the more engaging and entertaining sister road trip. That sister aspect of the movie is easily the film's greatest asset. It's the primary source of humor, heart, plot interest, and even quality of performances in the film. Awkwafina and Sandra Oh play a pair of estranged sisters who are polar opposites of one another, leading to a lot of odd couple-style humor. Interestingly, both actors here kind of play against type. If you were to read a little description blurb of this film, you could easily think that whoever wrote it accidentally transposed the names. Because in watching the movie, you'd expect Awkwafina to be playing Sandra Oh's character's role, and vice versa. Sandra Oh plays the outgoing, bombastic, and wild older sister Jenny, while Awkwafina plays the introverted and subdued trivia savant younger sister Anne. But that role reversal works remarkably well here, because not only are they funny individually, but they're extremely funny together. They make for a nice comedic pairing, and have really good chemistry together that's amusingly awkward at times, but also sweet at other times. I've gotta say, this movie surprised me quite a bit. I like comedies, and I like trivia, so I was looking forward to seeing it at TIFF, but I guess I wasn't expecting much from it. However, it ended up being quite a bit funnier than I anticipated. It certainly still had a few jokes that fell flat for me, but there were far more that worked than didn't, especially with regard to Awkwafina's various reactionary moments. I even enjoyed Will Ferrell's fairly small role here. As I mentioned before, comedy is subjective, but with that said, I was thoroughly entertained throughout this film. It seemed like the audience at TIFF felt the same way too, because of the 40 movies I saw there this year, this was one of the most laughing, engaged, enjoying themselves audiences I was a part of. This is a funny one, but it wasn't just the humor that struck me here. This movie also had a bit of heart to it, in a very feel-good, sisterly bond kind of way. So, is Quiz Lady Oscar material? No. Is it gonna go down as a comedy classic? Probably not. But is it a fun, rewatchable comedy that's gonna do great on streaming? Absolutely. Alright, let's talk about the pros and cons. The biggest pro has gotta be the performances. There are some small but funny performances from Tony Hale, Holland, and Will Ferrell, but the stars here are Awkwafina and Sandra Oh. Playing against type in roles you would expect to be swapped, these two actors deliver some very funny, sisterly odd couple style humor. With Sandra Oh in a more outgoing than normal role, and Awkwafina in a more reserved than normal role, you might expect the comedy to feel a bit off, but it actually works remarkably well. They're extremely funny individually and together, but the chemistry here isn't just comedic. They've also got some sweet sister moments that imbue the film with a good deal more heart than expected. On the con side, the biggest issue is the uneven humor. This is something that can probably be said of most studio comedies, and of course, comedy in general is pretty subjective, but this movie's definitely more than a little uneven on that front. I found most of the comedy to be pretty funny, but the things that didn't work really didn't work for me. And unfortunately, most of those aspects of the humor are kind of front-loaded, so it does make things start off a little rough and slow. But once things get going, it definitely all smooths out a bit. The second con sort of goes hand in hand with the first, and is that there are too many plot threads, which disrupt the flow of everything. This is one of those comedies that builds itself around an outrageous and convoluted premise, and that's fine. It definitely makes things entertaining and silly, but with how convoluted it is, it opens up a bunch of storylines. Some of them get dropped immediately, like everything having to do with the nursing home, while others remain an afterthought component throughout. These plot threads are occasionally funny, but they divide up the story's focus a little too much, especially since the scenes with the two sisters are by far the most interesting and entertaining. Before I give you my rating and recommendations, I want to remind you that if you're interested in buying Quiz Lady or any of the other films I mentioned today, I do have affiliate links for all of them in the description below. I get a small commission from anything you buy using one of my links, so I'd really appreciate it if you'd use them if you're in the market for any of these movies. I'm gonna give Quiz Lady 3.5 out of 5 paws. It's got some uneven humor and a convolutedly silly premise, but this is a surprisingly funny and heartfelt comedy led by the entertaining duo of Awkwafina and Sandra Oh. I would recommend Quiz Lady to people who enjoy silly but heartfelt comedies. With its implausible premise and joke-loaded story, this is the type of movie that would have felt right at home in the early 2000s. Like many of those films, the jokes don't always land here, but the role-reversed pairing of Awkwafina and Sandra Oh make for an incredibly entertaining time, while also delivering some unexpected sisterhood heart. If you liked Quiz Lady, I would recommend Game Night. This is probably one of my favorite comedies of the last decade, and it's another film about a crime-instigated, unexpected adventure. It's got some very entertaining performances, and also features a funny game of charades, though under slightly different circumstances. If you're looking for another comedy that's funnier and more heartfelt than expected based on the premise, you might want to check out Legally Blonde. The premise isn't quite as convoluted as that of Quiz Lady, but it's one of those implausible early 2000s comedies that works much better than you would ever expect. And if you enjoyed Will Ferrell's subdued role here, but are still in the mood for a comedy, or comedy drama in this case, you should check out Stranger Than Fiction. In one of his least screamy, over-the-top roles, Ferrell plays a man who suddenly starts hearing a woman narrating his life, and has to figure out what's going on. Alright, a couple questions for you guys. Number 1, have you seen Quiz Lady? If so, what'd you think of it? And number 2, what's your favorite movie featuring a game show? Be sure to leave your answers in the comments below so we can get a discussion going. Alright, so if you got some enjoyment, insider information out of this review, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that like button. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe while you're at it to see more videos like this. Till next time, this has been Alyssa with Mainly Movies, the way life should be.